Hello, welcome to part 3 of the werewolf story. This is lines 13, halfway through 13, all the way down to 21. This is my favorite part. Okay, so we are going to start here. In part 2, we did up to there. He persuades their guest to come with him to the 5th mile marker to go find Melissa because her husband has just died and he needs to find her. However, he was a soldier. However, a soldier. This is the guest. Brave as Orcus. This is another section where we have shoved 2 figures of speech into one. Brave as the underworld. That is a weird phrase. That doesn't mean anything. The underworld's a place. It's not brave. That's an idiom. That whole thing. Brave as the underworld. But then to compare something using like or as is a simile. So there's 2 in there. He was, however, a soldier. Brave as the underworld. Orcus. We set out, this is the we set out around the cock crow, the daybreak. We set out around dawn. This here, I just want to highlight it for you, is another hotbox. This apocalypse is a hotbox. And it is one that we're pretty sure what has the meaning of like to set out, to get going, to head out. So we headed out, we set out around the cock crow. Now, I want to turn right here and make sure that you notice that we have gone from some pluperfect verbs and we have all of a sudden started using some present tense verbs. I persuade, that was the last video, but still present tense, right? We set out, that's a present tense. We come, and we're going to see in a minute. Began only comes in the perfect, but we use it, right? I sit. Right, that man undresses. We're getting a, well, that actually isn't one, but we're gonna get a lot of present tense verbs right in a row. And I just want us to notice that that happens because these present tense verbs are all going to clue us in that the tone of the story is changing. Up until now, we've seen a lot of things that are, oh, you know, Melissa. There are a lot of satirical tone. But now that we've really gotten into the action of the story, we've switched to the present tense, and that present tense is called the historical present. It's how we tell stories where we're trying to really draw the reader in and say, and then the action picked up. So we change from the past into the present tense to kind of draw in the reader and get their attention. So that's what's happening with those verbs I highlighted in pink for you. They're all present tense. I think I will probably even slip and translate them as perfect because we were talking about something that happened in the past. We don't really do this in English, but you'll notice these ones are present tense in Latin. So we set out around daybreak. The moon was shining just like midday. That's another simile, just like midday. We're comparing with the moon shining. That was a horrible little line. We're comparing the moon shining in the middle of the night. I'm sorry, in the middle of the day as if it was at night. We came between the monuments. Now remember, they're walking out of town. That's where the monuments would have been. Well, they say monuments, it's really the tombs, right? And the sarcophagi and all the places where we bury people. We talked about it in class, the city of the dead. They are lining the road from the outside of Rome, the outskirts of Rome, out to where Melissa's inn is. You'll remember as well as we go along that you could see the front of the tombs from the front, but you could also go around the back. There was space to go in between them and go around back. People use that as a rest stop, so to say, to take care of their own bodily functions. So that's what he thinks his friend, the soldier, is going to do. Excuse me. My man began to make towards the tombstones. He begins to walk towards the tombstone. I sat down singing and I count the tombstones, the tunes. He sits down inside and he's counting all the tombstones. That's another one of those present tense verbs I can highlight for you because I know that you guys like those details. It's another historical present. So I sit down and I start counting the tombstones, looking around. Then as I looked back at my companion, notice that's an oot with an indicative verb. So that combination is just an as, right? Then as I looked back at my companion, that man undresses himself and he placed, that's actually a perfect verb thrown in the middle. He placed all of his clothes next to the road. This next bit, I will give it a different color because it's important. It's a really idiomatic phrase. We might say something in English, we might say something along the lines of, like my voice caught in my throat, or like you can, I got a frog in my throat maybe. But they would say, Romans would say, for me, the Spirit was in my nose. My spirit was in my nose. My breath caught in my throat, right? He went, right? That feeling that you get when something scares you, right? I think if I was walking with a relatively new friend and he just decided to undress himself and put all his clothes down next to the road, I would also be frightened. You'll also notice that this essay is an infinitive. It's a historical infinitive, just like the historical present. We'll see those when we get a little more into Caesar. So my spirit was in my nose. I was standing just like a dead man, just like I was dead. That's another simile for you. But that man peed around his own clothes. So he took off his clothes. He put a pile of them next to the road, and then he peed in a circle around them. Super cool situation. And suddenly, he factus est, he was made, he became a lupus, he became a wolf. So he's a man, he's a soldier, he takes off all his clothes, puts them in a pile beside the road, and turns into a wolf. As if that wasn't weird enough. This next sentence is 4 words in Latin, and it's got 2 different constructions in it. The first one, which I will make red for you, is nolite putare. That's a negative imperative. The negative command, it's telling you not to do something. So do not think, introducing an indirect statement that I am joking. Do not think, that's your negative imperative, that I am joking. Remember, inside an indirect statement, which is what this is, an indirect statement, your subject is accusative and your infinitive or your verb will look like an infinitive. So do not think that I am joking. We want this to be an E to look like an infinitive, but it's actually a deponent verb. That is like 1,000 complicated grammar things all in a row for something that's actually not that hard. Do not think that I am joking. Now, again, with all of these complicated things. So all this red is one complicated thing. And then the next part, I will do it green for you. It's actually not tricky. It's just weird word order. It is a result clause, but they switched the result portion and the action portion. So we're used to seeing it rained so hard that it flooded, but they just switched them. It flooded because it rained so hard, something like that. They just switched them. So here's your phrase. I'm going to do it in the right order and then I'll switch phrase. So I make no such money. I don't make enough money that I would lie, right? I make not such money, not such treasure, not such fortune that I would lie, right? That I would lie. I make no such fortune. It's kind of like, I wouldn't lie for all the money in the world. There's no amount of money you could pay me that would make me lie about this situation because it was so outlandish. Why would I lie? But the thing which I had begun to say is a connecting relative. For those of us who are keeping up with our grammar situation so well, it's a connecting relative. But that thing which I had started, which I had begun to say, after he became a wolf, he began to howl, and he fled into the woods. Now, I noticed as I was saying it, you'll probably heard me stumble, that these are both coepit and fugit. They're actually both present tense words. He begins to howl, and he flees into the woods. So those are more historical presence. This was a little bit of a bumpy translation on my part. If you have trouble, just come see me in office hour. We will get it figured out, I promise.